Hello IFO viewers, my name is Tùng Nguyễn. I'm currently studying at the University of Sydney.
Hi, I'm Trang. I'm currently a student at the University of Queensland. I'm also the Vice President of the Vietnamese Student Association in Queensland. Although I've been in Vietnam, I still try my best to strengthen Vietnamese students community in Australia.
For me, I'm a member of Vietnamese Australia Innovation Network, which helps connecting the mass network of Vietnamese professionals in Australia.
Welcome to IFO Nightly Show. Joining me today are two very young guests that I think the audiences are going to find a bit more relatable because of their age and because they're both students. So let's get to know them a little bit. So you guys are both students and you have been studying in Australia, at least until COVID hit. So could you tell me a little bit about what catalyzed your decision to choose Australia as a destination for overseas studies? Let's start with Trang.
The reason why I chose Australia as my first option for study abroad, because Australia has top ranked university with high living standard. Beside that, I feel like the peacefulness of Australian cities is alongside with the dynamic lifestyle. It's gonna make me want to choose Australia as my next destination.
What about you, Tùng? What attracted you to Australia before you arrived in the country?
I think the funniest reason was at that time I was deciding between studying in Singapore and Australia. The first reason is I think right at that time University of Sydney and University of Mercury actually sent the offer to me first before Singapore. Okay. And then the second reason is my friends told me that studying in Singapore is much tougher than Australia. So,
were there any hiccups when you were preparing for your studies abroad?
For me, when I was applying to study in Australia, I was under 18. Actually, I was 16. Yeah, so I had a lot of difficulty with the paperwork and finding the guardian and finding the accommodation because I had to...
It's a big place.
Yeah, it's a big place. Every time when I want to go outside, I had to ask my guardian and my uni representative to ask for their permission. But the university representative and the government actually helped me a lot when I'm preparing my paper to apply. So I think the application process is pretty easy for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
So in the beginning, you were kind of overwhelmed because you didn't really know where to start. But I think that's the thing I see a lot with Australian government websites. You know, they're just so easy to navigate and so user friendly. You know, so eventually you found your way around studying abroad. And what about you, Tùng?
I think most of the challenge is about adapting to a new culture. So the easiest thing to see is in Australia you travel from the left side instead of the right.
But driving in Australia is a true pleasure. It's really great to drive in Australia. Once
the scenery is just amazing.
Yeah, it's just breathtaking. You got the beautiful coastline, and it's got natural wonders all around you. You know, so it's a country where I feel like I don't have to travel too far to get into some really interesting outdoors activities. So if you were to sum up your Australian study experience, what 3 adjectives would you use?
For me, 3 adjectives that I would pick is dynamic.
Obviously.
Yeah, eventful.
Eventful. Okay. Yeah. You met your boyfriend there?
Yeah, of course.
Oh, okay. Naturally.
Yeah, and independent. Because I have to learn to try to do everything by myself, from finalizing paperwork.
What 3 adjectives would you use though?
I think the first one is welcoming.
Welcoming, yeah.
Yeah. So I think that when I came to Australia, a lot of Vietnamese societies and friends, they are really friendly in welcoming me into the city and then into the social life there. Yeah. Second one, I think engaging.
Engaging. Okay.
there's
a bit engaging.
There's a lot of activities you can do, like from societies to uni fairs, and kind of like, I think the one I remember the most is International Food Days, which is each student from each country prepare their own like country national food kind of thing. So,
okay. So I would say it's very happening. There's just always things happening at the same time.
It is.
And the final adjective?
Encouraging.
Encouraging.
Yeah.
Okay. Kind of similar to welcoming, but I'll give you a pass on that one.
Yeah, because I think that there's a lot of talented people in Australia, not only Vietnamese people, but then internationally. So surrounding yourself by such talented people, it makes you feel like you want to improve yourself. That's why I choose encouraging. The
IFO viewers will have a chance to hear more from another, I could say, expert on the subject, because this person used to study in Australia as well. But this person will not join us on this set because IFO, we have a segment, a long-standing tradition. It's called IFO On the Go. So let's see where Khánh Vy is.
Hi everyone! I know that during this COVID time you are spending more time indoor and online, so I consider myself to be a very fortunate person in this majesty of Cúc Phương National Park in Ninh Bình, and I can hear the sound of the wildlife, I can feel the beauty of the trees, of the mountains, and if you are spending more time in the nature, you've probably noticed that we are becoming kinder, happier, and it reminds me of the importance of being consciously, environmentally, the importance of conserving the nature. And that is also, you know, the main theme of IFO On the Go, this episode. I'm holding this amazingly beautiful trophy, Goldman Environmental Prize, which is like the Green Nobel. And let's meet and have a talk with the only Asian representative of this year, the hero from Vietnam, anh Nguyễn Văn Thái. Let's go. This trophy is really heavy. I think I should return this to the owner. Em chào anh Thái.
Chào em, chào khán giả ở trường quay IFO.
And hello, studio. Thank you for letting me use this trophy for a while. And thank you so much for spending time with us. First up, congratulations on the prize. And this year you are the only Asian representative to get this prize. How did you feel?
First, I'm very surprised about I got the prize, and but feeling very proud about it because the work of myself and my colleagues has been internationally recognized. I don't think it's a prize for that myself. It is for all of the people working on wildlife conservation in Vietnam. And I hope with this prize, it's bring more motivation and to really help for wildlife conservation.
Wow, you know, a very interesting fun fact is that anh Thái didn't know anything about the prize. The organization committee nominated him without him noticing, without him knowing, and looking at your work throughout the 20 years, right? So let's talk about your job. What got you into this beautiful job at first?
The first is like because I live near the forest. When I was young, I be able to see the wildlife and see the nature and experience with nature. When I growing up, I saw a lot of the tree being cutting down, the animal being poached for the traditional medicine and food consumption. Because that, I really want to doing something to against the loss and to protect the nature. When in 2014, I found Save Vietnam Wildlife, with the mission is really want Vietnamese people take more leadership to do the conservation and to be able to call for all of the Vietnamese people to join together to protect the nature. And since 2014, we've been able to rescue nearly 2,000 animal from illegal wildlife trade of 40 different species. Not that only rescue animal and release them back to the wild, we also doing the education, inspire thousands of people and community around the forest, get them involved in conservation and take care of the nature. We're doing the research and to provide the recommendation for the Vietnamese government to change the law, and also with for join the international workshop conference to be able to bring the pangolin more attention.
And as far as I know, your team has saved nearly 2,000 lives of pangolins, and you founded the very first organization to conserve the pangolins. So why pangolins?
When I was young, one time I saw the mom and baby being pushed by the local people. And I saw the mom try to queue up into the bowl to protect the baby, but she couldn't again the poacher. And that is make me feel really sad of like the animal is doing nothing harm to people. They really friendly, they haven't noticed, they cannot fight.
Yes.
But because the problem of people and it makes the pangolin going to extinct.
That is certainly the reason that motivated you to work non-stop for almost 20 years. And I know that you spent a lot of years studying in Australia. So what was the reason why you chose Australia as a destination to study?
When I first started working with pangolin, it's lucky I met one of my colleagues from Australia.
Yes.
And she told me a lot about Australia, the nature and the science, the course study at the university. And in 2012, I got the Australian government scholarship to be able to study. And I went there, and I really enjoy the beautiful nature and learn a lot from the university, and that is really helped myself to improve my understanding about the nature, about the science, research methods, and which I can apply for the wildlife conservation in Vietnam.
That's amazing. It's really inspiring to see a talent studying abroad and then bringing all the knowledge he learned from abroad to like contribute to the homeland, to our mother homeland. And you know what, I am more inspired is your story of studying English. You first started studying English when you were 22. So how did you study English? What is your tip?
Because I was born in the countryside, and at that time it's very difficult to find the course to study English. So when I finished my university and I started working in wildlife conservation, I couldn't find any information in Vietnamese about the pangolin. And that's why I going on internet, go on the YouTube to see all the publication in English about this species. And that it make me motivates me and to study English. It's really challenging, but we need to have a motivation and commit to and that is one of the reasons I improve myself.
Wow. So the key takeaway here is that it is easier to study English when you find out your passion and you use English as a tool to pursue that passion. So the final question I want to ask is that how could we as young people can do something to protect the nature?
Seeing a lot of the problem with the animal are going to extinct. First, they can stop consume the animal, and really again any kind of illegal activity. Some of the young people, they love the wildlife in the wrong way. They want to keep the animal as pets. They buy the animal from illegal chase, and I don't think that is it's a good thing to do. And because they buying animals, they increase the animal trafficking and poaching activity. So I hope the animal be living in the wild, and join the conservation organization. Together we can protect the wildlife.
Your work has already inspired us to be more environmentally conscious, and we really thank you for that. The job of a conservationist is not easy, and I think the very first thing I should do right now to start doing this job is to change the boots, shall we?
Yeah, let's go.
Let's go, and studio, stay tuned.
Wow, what an accomplished individual. So it's fascinating to me because he's living in Cúc Phương, and we don't get a chance to experience forests as much in Vietnam. But when I was visiting, Australia, I got to see forests every day. So was this the same for you guys when you guys were studying in Australia?
So for me, the common place that I would go for a weekend getaway, it's go to the beach or like a desert island or a national park. We can go camping there or we can go fishing. But Australian laws like really protective the balance of the ecosystem. So we need to get a license to go fishing.
Okay. So do you guys have a chance to participate in a lot of like student activities? Like you said you were doing that for one of your student activities, right?
Yep.
So were you in like student clubs? Were you pretty active at school?
Yeah, I joined the Vietnamese International Student Society at the University of Sydney.
Okay.
Yep. So I was event coordinator in the first year and then vice president in the second year.
Ooh.
So, yeah.
Very decorated.
Just trying to get involved.
Yeah. Okay, and what was that experience like?
It's really fun working. Like you have something to do in your spare times, and then you feel like you're contributing something in helping the new international student that coming to Sydney, and then just building like a educational ecosystem there.
Yeah, because not everyone is as good at English as yours. I mean, you're incredible. So obviously they need a stronger support system. And it's good to have like people your senior who've gone through the same difficulties that you have, and just to show them the way and pass on the knowledge. And what about you, Trang? Were you vice president or president of something?
I'm only the vice president of the Association of Vietnamese Students in Queensland.
Okay.
It's established this year because we think that like during the pandemic, so many students like me stuck in Vietnam. So this is our mission to reconnect them with the Australian side, And we organize some events, both online and offline, to welcome future students, as well as re-engaging the current student.
That's indeed very meaningful. So what advice would you give for someone who's just fresh ashore? Like, how do you connect with these associations and these groups of student support?
The way I start, I actually meet the president of the Vietnamese International Student Society. When I arrive in Australia, I just contact him and ask about upcoming events. Where can I join? They usually have a welcoming barbecue that have all the new members just meet up, eat together.
Okay. Well, what about Trang? What would be your advice for students wanting to connect to all these?
So this year we are organizing so many events for future students to take part in. Especially we have the upcoming sport league. It's we can play basketball and football between the Vietnamese students, and I think sport is an interesting way to engage people. Okay,
so kind of community outreach through sport. Today we're going to find out more about what onshore students are doing in these difficult times. So let's take a look at our video clip.
I noticed that I developed a passion for helping others and also a curiosity for the outside world at a very young age. And so studying law and international studies is the best of both worlds for me. My international experience has helped me directly get a job. And by being a bilingual, being able to speak English and Vietnamese at the same time, that helped me directly get into the paralegal position that I'm in right now.
Hi Tùng Đặng and the IELTS face-off audience. My name is Ha Anh and I'm currently a final year marketing student at University of Tasmania in Australia. I have just finished my shift as an intern in a non-profit organization here in Hobart, Tasmania. Even though this is an internship, is also a volunteering role that I'm doing for this organization, which is called Dress for Success. This organization helps empowering women in pursuing their career, and they're giving out free clothes to women who are in need of smart casual clothing for their interviews. Volunteering with these organizations has helped me a lot in sharpening my marketing skills, and also in helping a lot of people who are in need, which is what I really enjoy doing.
Hi Tùng Đặng and IELTS Face of Audience. I'm Trang Minh, a second-year chemical engineering student at the University of Sydney. I'm a full-time student, and like everyone else, I'm a part-time of something else. Regarding to my job, I've been working for Australian Water Associations as an intern for half of a year, and this is one of the biggest water network inspiring in Australia. So in my personal view, internship has always been a big goal for anyone, even local or international students. It is a very competitive environment. I normally see around 200 or 300 candidates applying for the same positions. Unlike a full-time job, I think international students have more chances when it comes to internship with less commitment required. However, the difference is for a full-time job, HR person do not usually ask for your academic transcript, but for internship they do. Such a nightmare, right? And their requirements are extremely high, and obviously proficiency in English is a must. As an intern, I'm responsible for actually different roles in different projects, such as secretary, logistic, or maybe just observer. I'm being able to expose myself to the water sector, which I'm interested. I'm being treated with much respect from my boss, which I'm tremendously thankful.
So IFO Nightly Show viewers today have gotten a chance to experience what life is like for onshore students as well as offshore students, what we're doing to cope during these difficult pandemic times amidst all the travel restrictions. I hope you guys are inspired to still stay interactive and stay connected with the people in your circles, in your universities, in your classes. So we're going to go back to Khánh Vy and her conservationist life in Cúc Phương momentarily after the break.
Mùa dịch này con không ở nhà thì bố mẹ nhất định phải giữ gìn sức khỏe, và con tin là chúng ta có thể cùng nhau vượt qua được đại dịch này.
Hai ba mẹ, con gái Ly của ba mẹ đây ạ. Và hiện nay thì con vẫn đang tiếp tục thực hiện giãn cách xã hội tại Sydney. Đến nay cũng đã hơn 3 tháng rồi, và cũng đã hơn 1 năm con chưa được quay về gặp ba mẹ cũng như là gia đình. Con thực sự rất là nhớ mọi người. Qua chương trình lần này, con cũng mong muốn được gửi một số lời nhắn nhủ tới ba mẹ. Con mong là ba mẹ vẫn sẽ luôn cẩn thận, giữ gìn sức khỏe thật tốt và một tinh thần thật là lạc quan để gia đình mình sớm đoàn tụ nhá.
Hi studio, welcome back. I'm more than ready to become a conservationist. Learning to become a conservationist. And Anh Thái is taking me to a very, I think, special place. Can you tell me more about this place?
Yeah, this is semi-wild area for the pangolin and many other species. So animal, after they finish the quarantine, if we want to know is how they are doing, and before we release them back to the wild, we release them in the semi-wild area, and where we can be able to see how they eating the natural foods, climbing on the tree or digging on the ground. All of the skills for them to be able to survive in the wild.
So that we can release the animals back to the nature.
Yeah, so that is one of the steps before they go back to the nature.
Wow, so it is the very first semi-wild area in your organization?
Yeah, this one is only the semi-wild area for the pangolin in the world. So,
sounds interesting. Can I go inside?
Yeah.
Wow. Wow, this is huge. Amazing. What do you have here?
Yeah, so you can see like that is a natural habitat where you can see all of the tree and see how the animal climbing. The ground is where we can know is if the pangolin can dig the burrow. And one of the special is in this area is have all of the ant nests. That
the ants.
Yeah, so that is the natural food of the pangolin. So if they can find the ant nest and feeding and survive, it means they can survive in the wild.
So how long does it take, this process?
It often takes between 3 weeks to 1 month to see and to evaluate all of the natural behavior and to tell if the animal can be survive in the wild.
Wow, that's a long process. Can we go inside?
Yeah, so in here it's we can go to see the pangolin. It's one of the pangolin which was released a few days ago in this area.
Okay. So how important are the pangolins in the nature?
Pangolin and as the same with many other species, they play important role in the ecosystem.
Yeah.
They eating ant and termite and manage the wide population of the species. They also digging the ground and it makes the fresh for the forest. And the burrow of the pangolin also is the home of many other species as well.
Yes, and that's why we should care about pangolins being poached, millions of pangolins being poached every year. And I know that it's really hard to identify the pangolins in this forest. So do you use any equipment or technology to identify them?
Yeah, so when we release pangolin back to the wild or in semi-wild area, we often put the transmitter on the animal and then using the radio tracking methods to be able to find where they are, how they are doing in the nature.
Wow, that's amazing. So how many pangolins are there in this forest?
Right now we have only one individual of the pangolin in this area.
Only one?
Yeah, yeah, that's one of the animals been rescued about 3 months ago, and now we want to see how they behave before we release him back to the nature.
That's just very amazing. Wow, can I see the radar checking? Oh, what is he doing?
Yeah, so here is Mr. Trang, so one of the Vietnam wildlife staff. So Trang is doing radio tracking at the moment and try to find where the pangolins sleep in the daytime. Trang, do you see the way the pangolin?
Yeah, I'm tracking a pangolin that we released in here a few days ago. So with this tracking receiver, I just caught him sleeping up there. You can see?
Wow. Oh, I cannot see very clearly. Where is that?
Oh, you can see on the top of the tree, the scale of the pangolin outside.
Wow. Okay, so that's how you use this equipment to check.
Yeah.
Oh, so pangolins are mostly active during nights, aren't they?
Yeah, they are nocturnal animals, and so in the daytime they often sleep on the top of the tree, or they dig the burrow by themselves and sleep underground.
Wow. So, you know, how often do you have to use this to check on them?
So after we release animal, every day we need to find out where they are. So we need to use this equipment to find where the animal.
Cool. So what are some features that we can verify the pangolin being ready to be released back to the nature?
Yeah, so to be able to understand and evaluate the behavior of the pangolin, one is looking at how they climb on the tree, because in the wild they often climb on the tree and sleep on the tree, or how they digging the burrow, and the pangolin often eating ant and termite underground. So that is one of the very important behavior.
So once they have all the wild behavior, they can be totally able to be back to the nature.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So do you want to see where the pangolin burrow? And,
yes.
Yeah. So
definitely. So how can you find the pangolin here?
So we can see the pangolin on the tree, or sometimes they digging the burrow by themselves and stay inside the burrow. For example, like here it's one of the burrow where the pangolin dig before.
Oh, okay, that's pretty deep.
Yeah, so the animal will stay underground, and sometimes they feeding ant and termite inside the burrow.
Mm-hmm. What is your method to check if the pangolins are down there?
Yeah, so because the pangolin only active in the night time, we set up the camera trap in the front of the burrow entrance, and where we can be able to know if the pangolin is in there, and it check what the animal doing, so we can see inside the camera.
How many cameras do you have in this area?
It's many. Like if we see the size of the pangolin burrow, and we that put the camera in there. Yeah. So how many burrow is placed? That is number of the camera we set up.
It depends, huh? Can we open it? Nice. Wow. Awesome. I didn't expect this.
Wow, that's really fascinating. I mean, usually I know what like environmentalists do. I just don't quite know what conservationists do. And today we get a glimpse into a typical day in the life of conservationists. I think that's pretty cool. And today we have the distinct privilege to be connected to someone who knows a lot about the subject of international studies. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Phil Honeywood, CEO of International Education Association of Australia. Hi Phil, how are you?
King Chao Kui Vi Tung, and to the studio, and great to join you today from a lovely spring weather day in Melbourne.
What is the weather like in Australia nowadays? I would assume that it's getting warmer by the day, right?
Yes, in Australia we don't have the humidity, the humid heat that you have in Vietnam and other countries in our Asian region. So it's more of a dry heat, and in spring in Melbourne really it's more around the 20 Celsius amount. In summer it can get as high as 35, 36 degrees Celsius, but it's a dry heat. It's not that humid heat that we always think about when we travel from Australia to Asia.
A lot of our viewers and a lot of students in Vietnam right now are just dying to study in Australia. So could you please give us some of the support that the government, Australian government, have available for international students looking to study in Australia during pandemic times?
So at the moment, any student who wants to work in the hospitality or the tourist industry can work uncapped hours. So you can still study full-time, but you now have the ability to work as many hours in the paid workforce as you want while you're studying. If you want to work in the hospitality industry, and there are many jobs in cafes and in restaurants and other hospitality venues for students who want to work. Now, normally in Australia, while you're studying full-time, you're only allowed to study, to work 20 hours a week in employment. But the good thing about when you work in Australian companies, even part-time work, is a very strong minimum wage that employers must pay you. And that minimum wage is about 25 Australian dollars per hour. The government is also, during the pandemic, for Vietnamese students who've been in Australia and can't get financial support, different state governments have been doing different ways of support. So in Sydney, the state government there provided an accommodation guarantee to make sure that students who were financially challenged for student accommodation could be looked after with free accommodation for some months. In my home state of Melbourne, Victoria, there was food vouchers made available. So for those students who are in difficult financial situation during COVID pandemic, different state governments and different universities have provided food, accommodation and other types of support. But now as we come out of the COVID lockdowns, there is much more paid employment in Perth, in Brisbane, in Sydney, in Melbourne, in Adelaide for students who want to work many hours, particularly in their holidays and on weekends while they study.
So one of the top concerns on students' minds right now is visa eligibility. Say if one is forced to go home because of COVID-19, would their visa still be eligible afterwards?
Yes, so at the moment they have to reapply for a new visa if too many months go by. But what the government are doing is they're seriously looking at a no-cost re-entry for Vietnamese students who want to come back to Australia to study. So if there's been a long gap between your study in Australia and being back home in Vietnam, then under normal rules you would have to pay for a new visa, but our Home Affairs Department are giving serious consideration to ensuring that there'll be no cost for a new visa.
Thank you, Phil, for the very insightful sharing about Australian government policy for international students. I'm sure we all feel more secure about studying in Australia now. But don't go anywhere, Phil. You're still connected to the IFO Nightly Show. And coming up next is Voice of the Week. And this is a mini competition of IFO where we have a contestant come on the show today. And Phil is going to act as our judge. So who's our special contestant today? Let's find out. She's backstage and I'm dying to get to know her.
What's up guys, I am now at the studio set in the backstage area and sitting right next to me here is our Voice of the Week contestant this week, Phương Anh. So hello Phương Anh, your topic is about Australia, but have you been to Australia before?
I actually have never been to Australia. This is actually the first time speaking in a lot of people in Australia, so I'm a little nervous.
No, I think you're going to do great, but it's going to be greater if you have done research on it. Have you done any research on it?
Yeah,
Australia?
I did several research about Australia, and I think that I'm in love with Australia after I did those several research.
So I can rest assured that you are going to do great because you have done research carefully. So I wish you all the best luck on your presentation on Australia. So now up you go to the stage, and before that, let's do a high five and hope you do good.
Thank you.
Up you go.
Welcome back to the IFO studio. This is Voice of the Week Challenge. Let's meet our contestant. Please. Hello, Phương Anh.
Hello, Ms. Tung and the guests as the judges today. My name is Phương Anh. I am 19 years old and currently I am a freshman at Hanoi University of Education.
Ooh, smooth.
Yeah.
You look ready.
Yeah, a little bit nervous right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just to clarify, we're not going to be the judges. You're going to be judged by our very own Phil Honeywood, CEO of Australian Education Association of Australia, from Australia.
Okay.
All right, so no pressure. And let me read you the topic for today. I'm just going to say, first, right off the bat, it's pretty long.
All right.
So, Australia is a place of great opportunity where people from anywhere in the world can pursue their studies and ambitions and careers in any field that they choose. What do you know about its diversity?
Okay, so let me start my presentation right here.
Please.
Okay.
You have 2 minutes.
Okay, so let's start back from 3 years ago when I was in 11th grade in Entity High School, stands for Nguyễn Văn Thái High School in the city of Hanoi. Our school was introduced many study programs in Melbourne University, and that was also the first time I had a lot of impression on Australia. And since then, I tried to get to know many things about Australia, about the people, the places, the education, and the job opportunity in there. And the thing that intrigued me most was the education, always, because for that I had heard a lot of good rumors about the education system in Australia. So I tried to figure out the school system in there. So the school system is actually similar across the country with minor variation between the state. And the school system is compulsory until 16, and almost children in Australia start their education at 5, which refer to as either kindergarten and prep school system in Australia runs over 13 years, including primary, secondary, and tertiary education, including higher education and vocational education. And there are so many reasons why for international students to choose Australia as a place to pursue and acquire higher education, to settle down or something, because you know, in Australia, it has many top universities. There are 43 universities in Australia, including 40 Australian, 2 international, and 1 private university. And there are also many various majors for international students to choose. For example, health and medicine are very common major in Australia. Also, the media and communication, and the business study, and law and legal study as well. The last thing I want to mention about Australia is the job opportunity. The job opportunity in Australia is diverse, and the fact that in Australia there is no low unemployment rate, just high economic growth, and high salary, wages, and good working condition in there as well. Nowadays, there are many companies in Australia. They are recruiting postgraduate as interns to work for their company for about 6 to 8 months before they're officially be the member in the company. So yeah, I think that is all I can say about my speech today. Yeah, thank you for listening.
Say no more. Sold. Sign me up.
Okay.
I mean, she made Australia sound like utopia, right? So obviously you know a lot about Australia.
I know just a little bit, not too much, because like I haven't been to Australia because
what?
Yeah, because I actually almost an international student, but a pandemic.
Okay.
Try to delay everything.
Okay, so I mean, for someone who hasn't been to Australia,
yeah,
you just went on stage and launched into a panegyric to Australian greatness that I don't think even people who have been to Australia can present. So Phil Honeywood, our judge for today, has been listening, and I'm sure he's thoroughly impressed. Let's hear his thoughts.
Ms. Phung Hang from Tana Education University did a really good job in talking about her knowledge of Australian education system. She explained very clearly and in beautiful English language that the different states of Australia have their own school education systems, but that you still qualify, it doesn't matter which city or state you study in, you still qualify with an Australian Certificate of Education, and that all universities in Australia will recognise that Certificate of Education. So she was very clear about the 13 years of compulsory study from kindergarten to year 12 before you matriculate into post-secondary vocational study or university study. And it was a beautiful presentation, and she'd done a lot of good homework and research to understand the education system in our country.
Thank you, Phil, for the comments, and Phung, I think you have a pretty decent shot at the grand prize of our Voice of the Week finale at the end of the season, and you will get a chance to, just score a ton of goodies if you do win that competition. And I have high hopes for you.
Thank you.
So the show is drawn to a close, and today we've got a chance to chat with 2 very lovely individuals who were gracious enough to share with us their experience studying in Australia, as well as some very, very practical tips on what students can do to get their Australian studies started. We've also got a chance to talk to Khánh Vy and experience what life is like for a conservationist, Nobel laureate no less, who's living in Cúc Phương, Vietnam, and that's such an inspiring story. So until next time, IFO viewers, my name is Tùng Đặng. You're watching the IFO Nightly Show.
Welcome back, studio. We're gonna feed the otter.